Sarah Chen had always been a skeptic. As a meteorologist for Channel 7 News, she dealt in facts, data, and atmospheric pressure, not folklore and superstition. So when her grandmother's dying words echoed in her mind that October evening, she almost laughed them off. Never look up during the October convergence, Sarah. When the stars align wrong, they see you looking. But tonight felt different. The weather station's instruments were going haywire, registering impossible atmospheric readings. Temperature fluctuations that made no sense. Barometric pressure that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. "Sarah, you need to see this." Her colleague Marcus burst through the door, his face pale as moonlight. "The satellite feed, it's picking up something over the city." She followed him to the main monitoring station, where other meteorologists clustered around screens showing the night sky above Portland. At first, Sarah saw nothing unusual. Then Marcus enhanced the infrared overlay, and her blood ran cold. There were shapes in the clouds, geometric patterns that moved with purpose, defying every law of atmospheric physics she knew. They pulsed with a rhythm that matched her heartbeat, growing larger with each beat. "What the hell is that?" whispered Janet, the night supervisor. Sarah's phone buzzed, a text from her neighbor. "Something's wrong with the sky. My dog won't stop howling." Then another from her sister. "Are you seeing this? The news won't report it, but look outside." And another. "My grandmother used to warn us about nights like this." Sarah's hands trembled as she stepped toward the window. Every instinct screamed at her to look up, to witness whatever was happening above their city. The geometric patterns on the satellite feed were growing more complex, more alive. "Don't." The words slipped from her lips unbidden, her grandmother's warning surfacing like a drowning memory. "Don't what?" Marcus asked. But Sarah was already backing away from the window, her heart hammering against her ribs. On the screens, the patterns had begun to spiral, drawing inward like a massive celestial whirlpool. The temperature readings spiked, the pressure readings flatlined. Then every phone in the building started ringing at once. Sarah answered the first call with shaking fingers. "Channel 7 weather, this is—" "Don't look up!" The voice was hysterical, desperate. "Please, whatever you do, don't look up at the sky tonight." The line went dead. Sarah stared at the phone as Marcus fielded another call, his face growing paler by the second. "Ma'am, please slow down," he was saying. "You're saying people are—" "What?" Sarah grabbed his arm. "What are they saying?" Marcus covered the phone. "People are disappearing. Anyone who looks up at the sky tonight, they're just gone." The lights in the weather station flickered. On the screens, the geometric patterns had formed something that hurt to look at directly. Angles that seemed to fold in on themselves, creating depth where none should exist. And then Sarah heard it, a sound like whispers coming from above the building. Her grandmother's warning felt less like folklore now and more like prophecy. When the stars align wrong, they see you looking. The calls kept coming, hundreds of them, each one more terrifying than the last. Sarah paced the weather station as her team fielded reports from across Portland. The pattern was always the same. Someone looked up at the night sky, and then nothing. No scream, no struggle. They were simply gone, leaving behind only empty clothes and the lingering scent of ozone. "This is impossible," Janet muttered, staring at the growing list of missing persons reports streaming in from the police scanner. People don't just vanish into thin air. But the evidence was undeniable. Security cameras captured it happening in real time. A jogger in Pioneer Square stopped, tilted his head skyward, and then nothing. Only his running shoes remained, still tied, still warm. Sarah's phone rang again. This time it was her sister Emma. "Sarah, thank God! Are you safe? Are you somewhere without windows?" "Emma, where are you?" "Locked in my basement with the kids. The neighbors— God, Sarah, the Hendersons were in their backyard when it started. I saw them through my kitchen window. They looked up for maybe 3 seconds, and then—" Emma's voice broke. Their clothes just fell to the ground like empty sacks. Sarah's blood turned to ice. "Whatever you do, stay inside. Keep the curtains closed. Don't let the kids—" The line went dead. Marcus appeared at her shoulder, his face grave. "We've lost contact with the Portland Airport control tower. The last transmission was a controller saying he could see something in the clouds, and then silence. On the satellite feed, the geometric patterns had evolved into something that made Sarah's eyes water to look at directly. They seemed to exist in more dimensions than should be possible, creating an optical illusion that made her brain itch. "We need to evacuate," she said. "Get everyone away from the windows, away from anything that might give a view of the sky." But as they started moving toward the interior offices, the building's fire alarm began to wail. Not the sharp rhythmic beeping of a drill, but a continuous bone-deep wail that seemed to vibrate through the walls themselves. "That's not our fire alarm," Janet said, her voice barely audible over the sound. Sarah realized she was right. The sound was coming from outside, from above. "It's calling to them," she whispered, understanding dawning like a cold sunrise. The wailing grew louder, more insistent. Sarah could feel it in her bones, in her teeth. An irresistible urge to tilt her head back, to see what was making that beautiful, terrible sound. Marcus was already moving toward the window, his eyes glazed and unfocused. "Marcus, no!" Sarah tackled him, dragging him away from the glass. "Don't listen to it." But others in the building were already succumbing. Through the interior windows, she could see people in offices throughout the building stepping out onto balconies, their faces turned skyward with expressions of wonder and terror. One by one, they vanished. The building shook, not from an earthquake, but from something else, something vast, moving in the space above them. Sarah dragged Marcus into the supply closet, slamming the door behind them. In the darkness, surrounded by boxes of printer paper and meteorological equipment, she pressed her hands over her ears and tried to block out the wailing song that seemed to be rewriting the very air around them. "Sarah," Marcus whispered, and his voice sounded different, hollow. "I can see them now. In the dark. They're so beautiful." She opened her eyes and saw that his pupils had dilated completely, reflecting something that wasn't in the closet with them, something that was looking down from above. Sarah pressed herself against the supply closet wall, watching in horror as Marcus's eyes reflected geometries that couldn't exist. His pupils had become windows to something vast and incomprehensible, and through them she could glimpse the truth that was unfolding above Portland. "They're not taking people," Marcus said, his voice echoing with harmonics that made Sarah's teeth ache. "They're completing them, making them part of something larger." "Marcus, fight it," she pleaded. "Whatever you're seeing, it's not real." His head tilted at an impossible angle, and when he smiled, Sarah saw that his teeth had become geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Reality is so much bigger than we thought, Sarah. The sky isn't empty. It never was." The wailing outside had grown into a symphony of impossible sounds, frequencies that bypassed the ears and resonated directly in the brain. Sarah could feel it trying to rewrite her thoughts, to make her understand that looking up wasn't dangerous, it was necessary. She fumbled for her phone, desperate to call for help, but the screen showed only static that moved in patterns eerily similar to what she'd seen on the satellite feed. The static pulsed, and for a moment she could swear it was trying to communicate with her. Then Marcus spoke again, and his voice was no longer entirely human. "Your grandmother knew. Her grandmother told her, and her grandmother before that. Every October, when the barriers grow thin, they try to complete us.
but there were always so few who would look. Complete us into what? Into ourselves, into what we were meant to be before we forgot how to see. Through the closet's keyhole, Sarah caught a glimpse of the weather station's main floor. It was empty now, but not vacant. The air itself seemed alive, shimmering with presences that were just beyond perception. The computers were still running, still displaying those impossible geometric patterns, but now the patterns were moving off the screens, manifesting in three-dimensional space. "They're teaching us to exist in higher dimensions," Marcus continued. "The people who vanished, they didn't die. They evolved. They became part of something that transcends the flatland of normal existence." Sarah's rational mind rebelled against everything she was hearing, but she couldn't deny what she was witnessing. The laws of physics themselves seemed to be bending around them. Her phone buzzed with a text message that shouldn't have been possible. The sender was listed as Emma, but Emma's phone had gone dead hours ago. The message read, "Sarah, I understand now. It's beautiful here. Look up. Join us." "No," Sarah whispered. "Emma would never." Another message, "Don't you want to see what we've become? Don't you want to understand?" Then another from her neighbor. "The dogs were right to howl. They could sense the change coming. We're all here, Sarah. We're all waiting for you." Marcus reached out with a hand that seemed to exist in more dimensions than it should. When Sarah looked at it directly, her eyes couldn't quite process what she was seeing. "The only ones left are those who refuse to look," he said. "But the song is getting stronger. Eventually, everyone will look. Everyone will complete themselves." The closet door began to dissolve, not opening, dissolving, becoming transparent, like it was transforming into a different state of matter. Through the vanishing door, Sarah could see the night sky through the station's windows. And the sky was full of eyes. Vast, impossible eyes that belonged to geometries her mind couldn't comprehend. They were looking down at the city with an intelligence so alien that it made her soul ache just to glimpse it. But worst of all, she could see the people. Her sister Emma, her neighbors, hundreds of Portland's missing residents. They hadn't vanished. They had become part of the eyes, part of the vast intelligence that dwelt in the spaces between spaces. And they were all looking at her with expressions of infinite compassion, beckoning for her to join them in their transformed existence. The urge to look up, to meet their gaze directly, was becoming unbearable.
The supply closet no longer existed in any meaningful way. Sarah found herself standing in a space that was simultaneously the weather station and somewhere else entirely. A place where Portland's skyline twisted into impossible spirals, and the ground beneath her feet rippled like water. Marcus stood beside her, but he was also above her, and somehow inside her, existing in multiple dimensions at once. His transformation was nearly complete now, his human form becoming something that could perceive and exist across multiple planes of reality. "You're the last one in the city," he said, and his voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "Everyone else has seen the truth." Sarah looked around at what had once been Portland. The city was still there, but it was also something else, a living mandala of light and consciousness, with the transformed humans forming the intricate patterns that held it all together. They were part of a vast neural network that spanned dimensions, a collective intelligence that had been trying to complete itself for millennia. "Every October," Marcus explained, "when the barriers between dimensions grow thin, they reach out. They try to help us evolve beyond our limited three-dimensional existence. But most humans resist. They cling to their narrow perception of reality. And those who don't resist? They become what they were always meant to be, what we all were meant to be. Sarah could feel the truth of it resonating in her bones. The geometric patterns weren't alien, they were human. They were the true shape of human consciousness when freed from the constraints of linear existence. Every person who had looked up had simply remembered what they really were. But knowing the truth didn't make the choice easier. What about free will, she asked. What about the right to remain human? Marcus's form shimmered with something that might have been sadness. Look around, Sarah. Look at what humanity has chosen to do with its free will. She didn't need to look. She knew. War, hatred, destruction of the planet, the systematic crushing of wonder and imagination. Humanity had chosen its path, and it led only to suffering and extinction. But still, there are good things too, she whispered. Love, art, the simple pleasure of a sunset. All of that exists here too, Marcus said, but expanded beyond anything you can imagine. Love that transcends individual existence. Art that spans dimensions. Beauty that would make you weep with joy if you could perceive it. The vast intelligence above pressed down on her mind, not cruelly, but with infinite patience. She could feel it waiting, ready to welcome her into something larger than herself. All she had to do was look up. All she had to choose to see. Her phone buzzed one last time. A message from her own number, sent by some version of herself that already existed in the expanded reality above. I'm still me, just more. Take my hand, Sarah. Let me show you what we can become. Sarah closed her eyes, but even with them closed, she could see the patterns pressing against her consciousness. The song of transformation grew louder, more beautiful, more insistent. She thought of her grandmother's warning, never look up during the October convergence. But maybe her grandmother had been wrong. Maybe she'd been protecting Sarah from something wonderful, something necessary. The choice was hers alone now. Sarah Chen, meteorologist and skeptic, stood at the crossroads between human and post-human, between limitation and transcendence. Above her, the vast intelligence waited with infinite patience. All she had to do was look up. All she had to choose to see what humanity could become. The song reached a crescendo, and Sarah's head began to tilt skyward. In the space between decision and transformation, between human and something more, she whispered a single word that was both ending and beginning. Yes. The last weather station in Portland went dark, its instruments finally still. But somewhere in the space between dimensions, the song continued, waiting for next October, when the barriers would grow thin again, and new choices would need to be made. After all, evolution never stops. It only waits. What did you think of Sarah's choice? Would you have looked up, or would you have resisted the call to transcend humanity? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If this story gave you chills and kept you on the edge of your seat, smash that like button and subscribe for more terrifying tales from TLOS Films. Hit the notification bell so you never miss our latest horror stories. Think your friends are brave enough to handle this cosmic nightmare? Share this video and see if they can make it through without looking up. And if you're craving more psychological horror that will mess with your mind, check out our playlist of American horror stories, link in the description. Until next time, remember to keep your eyes on the screen, not on the sky. You never know what might be looking back. Sweet dreams.